The Young and the Restless spoilers. Wednesday, July 1st, Billy's wrecking ball hits Sally's company. The Young and the Restless, Y&R, spoilers for Wednesday, July 1st, reveal that Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, will prove he still knows how to go off the rails and do serious damage. Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn, will also deliver a special request to Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, so let's discuss what's coming up in Genoa City. Now that Jill Abbott, Lauren Koslow, is back in town and fighting with Billy, Kane is feeling caught in the middle of the feud. Kane still cares about Billy and wants him to be okay, so he's hoping to throw him a lifeline. After Kane's suggestion about making Billy a Chancellor employee on Tuesday, he'll push Lily to seriously consider it in Wednesday's episode. Kane will make a plea to Lily, so she may give her official approval on the job offer, though she'll continue to believe Billy is too stubborn to accept some position to placate him. Meanwhile, Billy will spin out of control and do something that'll prove detrimental to Spectra Charles Media. Y&R fans can expect Billy to take a wrecking ball to Sally Spectra's, Courtney Hope, company, so she'll be upset over whatever terrible news is brewing. Over with Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, he'll know it's important to be careful when it comes to dealing with Patty Williams, Stacey Hayduke. Jack will decide he needs to trap Patty somehow, so he'll lure her into a setup and hope it gets him a step closer to saving Diane Jenkins Abbott, Susan Walters, from Dr. Laurence Markham's, Jerry Burns, lair. However, Patty is awfully sneaky and knows how to set traps of her own. That's why the game Jack and Patty are playing will come with more twists and turns before the week's over. Kyle Abbott, Michael Mealer, will remain a key player when it comes to plotting Diane's rescue, but he'll run into some new challenges of his own. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Diane will keep manipulating Dr. Markham in the meantime, but Jack and Kyle will hope to get her out of there soon enough. The Young and the Restless Tuesday, June 30th recap, Dr. Markham threatens to lock Patty back up, Tracy the Strangler. The Young and the Restless, Y&R, recap for Tuesday, June 30th, reveals that Dr. Laurence Markham, Jerry Burns, will play hardball with Patty Williams, Stacey Hayduke, while Tracy Abbott, Beth Maitland, admits to having some disturbing dreams. At the GCA, Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn, will finally leave to give Jill Abbott, Lauren Koslow, and Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, a chance to discuss all their drama. Once Kane heads to Crimson Lights and fills Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, in on Jill's visit, he'll feel a bit guilty over Billy's issues with him. Kane will suggest offering Kane a position at Chancellor, but Lily won't think it's a good idea and will doubt that he would take it anyway. However, Kane will stand his ground on trying to get Billy on board, so Lily will see that it's important to him. Back with Billy, he'll suggest part of him still wants to believe there's some rational reason that Jill sold him out to Victor Newman, Eric Braden, instead of just having no faith in him. Jill will confess to being the mysterious benefactor behind Abbott Communications as a way to prove she does have faith. Billy will admit Sally Spectra, Courtney Hope, already told him and will suspect maybe Jill was just throwing him a bone. Jill will assume Billy thinks Kane is her favorite and that she views Billy as a failure. That's why Jill will be willing to sit there until her last breath to convince Billy that's not the case, but he'll admit that's what he's worried about. Billy will have concerns about Jill's health if they truly hash this out, but Jill will plead for an opportunity to just talk mother to son. At Society, Kyle Abbott, Michael Mealer, will get confirmation that Tracy hasn't seen or heard from Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, today, so he'll confess that Jack may be in trouble. After Kyle explains how he followed Dr. Markham back to his residence, he'll also talk about the plot he cooked up with Jack to distract the doc. The goal was for Jack to break in Dr. Markham's house and search for Diane Jenkins Abbott, Susan Walters, but Kyle won't have heard from his dad yet. Kyle will also point out that Dr. Markham called back to cancel their meeting and invited him to come back to his house with the police along with a search warrant. That'll lead to speculation that Patty must have changed Dr. Markham's course of action. After Tracy realizes Jack could be walking straight into a trap, she'll think they should head over to Dr. Markham's place. Kyle will convince Tracy that they have to hold off for a bit and be smart about this. Tracy will also reflect on how much she wants to strangle Patty until there's no life in her body for what she did to Colleen Abbott, Tammin Sursak. Once Tracy admits she dreams about it and that she can never finish the job, she'll wonder if that makes her a coward. Kyle will suggest that makes Tracy human instead and will insist she's not like Patty. At Dr. Markham's house, Patty will talk about her intrusive thoughts and mess with Dr. Markham by suggesting she's a danger to others. Dr. Markham won't want to play shrink with Patty as they bicker about her scheme. Dr. Markham will admit the bond between Jack and Diane is stronger than they anticipated, but he'll insist he's making progress with his new patient, unlike Patty since she's getting nowhere with Jack. Patty will argue that her Jack reunion is happening and this is the hill she's dying on, so she'll plan to take everyone down with her if she doesn't get what she wants. Since Patty's rehabilitation claims were exaggerated, Dr. Markham will hint that he could change his recommendation and have her locked up again. Patty won't like being threatened, but Dr. Markham will argue that he doesn't like it either, though he'll ultimately stick with their deal. When Diane comes up from the basement gym, Dr. Markham will hustle Patty out the door. Diane will question who Dr. Markham was talking to, so he'll lie about being on a phone call about ordering her sedatives. After Diane declares that she needs to move on from Jack, she'll act like she's getting attached to her therapist and get Dr. Markham to admit it can be a good thing. Diane will ask if they could have dinner together tonight and will offer to cook, so Dr. Markham will admit he'd like that very much. At the Abbott mansion on Tuesday's Y&R episode, Patty will gaze angrily at a framed photo of Jack and Diane. Although Diane can have her memories of Jack, Patty will insist Jack is her man now and will contend that the Abbott mansion is hers, too. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Patty will make some other shocking moves soon enough. Y&R showrunner teases Jess Walton's return, Jill Abbott's new mission. Jess Walton has been a part of the Young and the Restless cast since 1987, when she waltzed into Genoa City as fan fave Jill Abbott. It's hard to imagine anyone else playing the iconic character, so fans were shocked when Lauren Koslow stepped in as a recast this month. Jess Walton back as Jill. According to Y&R comings and goings, Jess Walton will be taking back the role of Jill Abbott this summer and fans won't want to miss a moment of the action. The only reason TPTB at Young and the Restless brought in Lauren Koslow as a temporary recast was because of a scheduling conflict. Walton actually lives up in Oregon and wasn't able to make it down to film the scenes that aired with Koslow this week. Soap spoilers say that fans can expect to see Walton's character Jill Abbott in several episodes this summer. She'll reportedly be sharing some emotional scenes with Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn, and Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson. Jill's impossible mission. Jill Abbott will have one thing on her mind when she pops back up in Genoa City, getting her son and stepson to bury the hatchet. The Young and the Restless showrunner dished to Soap Opera Digest about Walton's upcoming storyline. Josh Griffith told the magazine, she wants them to get along. She wants him to accept that Kane will be running this company that Billy has coveted for so long. Anyone who watches Y&R knows that Jill Abbott has an impossible mission ahead of her. In fact, the daytime soap matriarch probably has a better chance of seeing pigs fly than Billy and Kane becoming besties. Are you looking forward to having Jess Walton back on Young and the Restless this summer? The Young and the Restless fans, what if everything Jack Abbott believed about saving Diane was already falling apart before he even reached her? What if the greatest threat wasn't Dr. Laurence Markham's twisted obsession, but someone much closer, someone nobody expected to betray the Abbott family once again? As Diane desperately fights to convince her captor that she has finally accepted his treatment, every smile she forces could be the difference between freedom and permanent imprisonment. Meanwhile, Kyle waits anxiously for a phone call that never comes, unaware that every passing minute pushes his mother closer to a nightmare she may never escape. Across Genoa City, old rivalries refuse to die as Jill Abbott struggles to stop another family war before it destroys everything she has spent decades trying to protect. But hidden behind every promise is another secret, and before this story is over, one shocking decision will change the future of the Abbott family forever. The silence inside Dr. Laurence Markham's private clinic had become almost unbearable. Every hallway felt colder than the last, every locked door serving as another reminder that Diane Abbott was running out of time. She had spent days searching for a weakness in the doctor's carefully controlled routine, but every failed attempt had only convinced him that she needed more treatment. Then everything changed. Instead of fighting him, Diane stopped arguing. She stopped demanding to leave. She stopped questioning his methods. To Markham, it looked like acceptance. To Diane, it was survival. She had realized something that few people ever understood about dangerous men. They didn't simply want obedience. They wanted admiration. They wanted someone who believed they were brilliant. So Diane began giving him exactly what he wanted. Every conversation became another performance. She listened carefully as Markham explained his theories. She nodded when he described his unusual methods. Sometimes she even smiled, pretending to admire his intelligence. The doctor noticed the difference immediately. His confidence grew with every visit. His guards slowly began to fall. But while Markham believed he was finally breaking Diane's resistance, she was quietly studying every movement he made. She memorized where he placed his medical supplies. She watched which cabinet remained unlocked. She paid attention every time he reached for a vial of sedatives before leaving the room. Each observation became another piece of a dangerous puzzle. Diane knew she would probably have only one chance. If she moved too early, she would lose everything. If she waited too long, there might never be another opportunity. Meanwhile, far away from the clinic, Kyle Abbott couldn't ignore the growing feeling that something had gone terribly wrong. Jack had promised to stay in contact. That promise had now been broken. Kyle checked his phone again. Nothing. No messages. No missed calls. No updates. Every minute felt longer than the one before. His imagination immediately began creating worst-case scenarios. Had Jack been discovered? Had Markham anticipated the rescue? Or had someone leaked their entire plan before it even began? Kyle desperately wanted to believe his father was simply being cautious. But deep inside, fear was beginning to replace hope. Because in Genoa City, silence rarely meant everything was under control. More often than not, silence meant disaster was already unfolding. Kyle could no longer sit still. The unanswered calls, the complete silence from Jack, and the growing sense that something had gone terribly wrong were becoming impossible to ignore. Every instinct told him that this wasn't simply a delay. Something had interrupted the rescue before it had even begun. Tracy Abbott watched her nephew pace across the living room, recognizing the same worried expression she had seen on Jack countless times over the years. "He'll find a way," she said quietly, hoping her confidence would ease Kyle's fears. Kyle wanted to believe her. Jack Abbott had overcome impossible situations before. He had outsmarted powerful enemies, protected his family through countless crises, and always found a way to bring the people he loved home. But this time felt different. This enemy didn't care about money. He wasn't interested in revenge. Dr. Laurence Markham believed he was helping Diane. That dangerous delusion made him far more unpredictable than anyone Kyle had faced before. At the clinic, Diane continued playing the role she had created. Every word was carefully chosen. Every smile was measured. She thanked Markham for listening to her. She admitted that perhaps she had been too emotional when she first arrived. She even apologized for resisting his treatment, knowing exactly what he wanted to hear. The psychiatrist seemed pleased. "You've made remarkable progress," he told her with quiet satisfaction. Diane forced herself to smile. Inside, she was terrified. Because the closer Markham believed they had become, the more dangerous the situation was becoming. His attention toward her had changed. It was no longer simply professional. He lingered in the room longer than necessary. He spoke less like a doctor and more like someone who genuinely believed they shared a special connection. That realization sent a chill through Diane. She knew she had to escape before his obsession became even more dangerous. When Markham stepped into the hallway to answer a phone call, Diane acted quickly. She moved toward the medical cabinet she had been watching for days. Her hands trembled as she quietly opened the drawer. Inside were several small bottles of sedatives. She slipped two of them into her sleeve just seconds before footsteps echoed back toward the room. She barely made it back into her chair before the doctor walked inside. For one terrifying moment, his eyes locked onto hers. Neither of them spoke. The silence felt endless. Then Markham smiled. "I'm glad you waited for me," he said. Diane nodded, hiding every trace of panic. But someone else had already changed everything. Patty Williams stood outside another hallway, remembering every word she had overheard between Jack and Kyle. She had convinced herself she was protecting Diane by warning Markham. In Patty's fractured mind, Jack wasn't coming to rescue Diane. He was coming to ruin her recovery. Without hesitation, Patty made another anonymous call. She warned that someone was getting closer to the clinic. Markham listened carefully. His pleasant expression slowly disappeared. "So?" he whispered after ending the call. "They're still coming." Instead of panicking, he smiled. If Jack Abbott wanted to walk into his world, then perhaps it was time to prepare a welcome that no Abbott would ever forget. By the time the sun began to disappear behind the Genoa City skyline, the atmosphere inside the Abbott family was growing heavier with every passing minute. Kyle had exhausted every possible way to reach his father. Calls went unanswered. Messages remained unread. Even the people Jack normally contacted during a crisis had heard nothing. For the first time, Kyle allowed himself to consider the possibility he had been trying to avoid. What if Jack hadn't simply gone silent? What if someone had stopped him? Across town, Jill Abbott was dealing with a different battle. Family had always been the most complicated investment of her life, and lately it seemed as though every relationship she cared about was hanging by a thread. Billy Abbott still couldn't understand why his mother had always trusted someone else with the biggest opportunities. No matter how many businesses he helped build or how many times he fought to prove himself, he always felt like the family disappointment. Jill looked directly into her son's eyes. "You've never been a disappointment to me." Billy wanted to believe those words, but years of frustration couldn't disappear in a single conversation. "If that's true," Billy replied quietly, "then why does it always feel like everyone else gets your confidence before I do?" Jill hesitated. She knew there wasn't a simple answer. She loved Billy with all her heart, yet loving him and trusting his business decisions had never been exactly the same thing. It was a painful truth neither of them wanted to admit aloud. Before the conversation could continue, another name entered the discussion. Kane Ashby. Jill refused to watch Billy and Kane continue destroying each other while Victor Newman quietly benefited from their division. If they continued fighting, Victor would always stay one step ahead. "Whatever happened between you," Jill said firmly, "it's time to end it." Billy crossed his arms. "That depends on whether Kane wants peace or another war." Meanwhile, miles away from Chancellor politics and family arguments, Diane realized her window of opportunity was beginning to close. Dr. Markham returned carrying a fresh tray of medication, but something about his expression had changed. The confidence Diane had carefully built inside him was still there, but now there was something else. Suspicion. He asked questions he had never asked before. Why had she suddenly changed her attitude? Why was she so cooperative? Why did she seem calmer than ever? Diane answered each question carefully, refusing to rush a single word. She explained that fighting had accomplished nothing. She claimed she wanted to heal. She even thanked him for never giving up on her. Markham listened without interrupting. Then he smiled. A slow, unsettling, almost unreadable smile. "I think," he said softly, "you're finally beginning to understand me." Diane forced herself to smile back, but every instinct screamed that something was wrong. She couldn't shake the feeling that Markham had started putting the pieces together. If he discovered the missing sedatives hidden inside her sleeve. If he realized she had been manipulating him from the very beginning. Every hope of escape would disappear in an instant. And somewhere just beyond the clinic walls, Jack Abbott was moving closer than ever, completely unaware that the trap waiting ahead might not only destroy his rescue mission. It could cost him everything. Night had settled over Genoa City, but for the Abbott family, darkness had become far more than the absence of sunlight. It had become uncertainty, fear, and the terrifying realization that every decision from this moment forward could determine whether Diane ever came home again. Hidden inside the clinic, Diane took one slow breath after another, forcing herself to remain calm. The stolen sedatives were still concealed beneath her sleeve. They represented freedom. They also represented disaster. If Dr. Laurence Markham discovered them before she could use them, every ounce of trust she had carefully built over the past several days would vanish in an instant. Markham entered the room carrying Diane's evening medication, but something about him felt different. His warm smile looked rehearsed, almost as if he were waiting for her to make a mistake. He sat across from her without saying a word. For nearly a minute, neither of them spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. "Trust," he said quietly, "is the foundation of every successful treatment." Diane met his eyes, refusing to look away. "And I believe we're finally beginning to trust each other." The words sounded convincing. Even Diane almost believed them herself. Markham nodded slowly before standing and walking toward the door. "I won't be gone long." The moment the door clicked shut, Diane moved. She poured a measured amount of the sedative into a nearby glass, careful not to leave any obvious evidence behind. Every movement had to be perfect. There would be no second chance. Outside the clinic, another dangerous game was unfolding. Jack Abbott had finally located the isolated property after following a trail of overlooked clues. Every instinct told him Diane was somewhere inside, but charging through the front entrance would almost certainly put her life at risk. Instead, Jack chose patience. He quietly observed the building, memorizing security cameras, staff routines, and possible exits. Then something unexpected caught his attention. Patty Williams. She slipped into the clinic through a side entrance, looking over her shoulder as though she was afraid someone had followed her. Jack's heart sank. Everything suddenly made sense. Their rescue plan hadn't failed because of bad luck. Someone had warned Markham. And Patty was the missing piece. Rather than confronting her immediately, Jack made a decision that surprised even himself. If Patty believed she was helping Markham, then perhaps she could unknowingly help Diane instead. For the first time all night, Jack stopped reacting to events. He started creating them. Across Genoa City, Billy replayed his conversation with Jill over and over. Despite their differences, one truth remained impossible to ignore. Family could either become your greatest strength or your greatest weakness. Victor Newman understood that better than anyone. Every fractured relationship inside the Abbott family created another opportunity for him to tighten his grip on Genoa City. But neither Victor nor Markham realized something important. The Abbotts never stayed down forever. When one family member was in danger, the others always found a reason to fight. And as dawn approached, 3 separate battles were about to collide. Diane was preparing the most dangerous escape attempt of her life. Jack was setting a trap that could finally expose Patty's betrayal. And the next move made by Dr. Laurence Markham would determine whether this nightmare ended with a miraculous reunion or a heartbreaking loss that would change the Abbott family forever.